and the City of St. Albert has helped us to do that. We are so grateful for the support we have always received from the City of St. Albert and don't want you to think that we take it for granted. We have been in the envious position in previous years of having our own earned revenue sources that brought in about 60% of our annual budgeted revenue. Our original 220 budget targeted a revenue amount of $1,105,000, of which 31% was projected to come from City of St. Albert grants and a Canada New Horizons grant. That left us with 69% to come from our own earned revenue and fundraising source. And we believed that was very doable based on the previous year's actual revenue. In March 2020, when faced with financial challenge, we acted responsibly and made the hard choices we had to maintain services for seniors and ensure we continued to be viable as an organization. This included cutting our largest expense, our staff team, and also doing everything we could to save money on expenses like gas, water, etc., recognizing that we had a projected revenue shortfall of $300,000. We also proactively searched for other grant and revenue opportunities. We applied for 2 government grants in June 2020 and received $20,000 project-based funding from Canada New Horizons in September 2020. And in late December 2020, we received $67,000 from the Alberta Community Initiatives Program, the operating stream, to put towards 50% of 3 staff salaries in 2021. Water. Okay. We also saw an opportunity as the pandemic went on and people grew tired of eating their own cooking. We started offering frozen quarts of soup and then added frozen entrees, all made fresh in our kitchen, and were soon selling out and had to increase our production. We also offer Christmas dinner to go individually or for families, and over 125 people purchased dinners in the size they wanted. These sales continue to grow whether our facility is open to the public or people pick up at the curb, and we are actively marketing to build these sales. Due to our proactive saving measures in 2020, our salaries and expenses were lower than what we projected they would be when we submitted our operating grant proposal in September of 2019. We submitted our interim financial report in November of 2020, and we recognized that we did not reach the minimum levels of salary and expenses in subcategories. But submitted a written request asking if we could still receive the 10% pullback of $23,962. We understand and respect if receiving the 10% holdback is not possible as it does not meet the policy requirements. We do ask that the exceptional circumstances of 220 be taken into account and St. Albert's Association not be asked to return any portion of the 220 grant already paid out to us in January of 2020. To have to do so would be a real hardship for our organization and would set us back after an already incredibly difficult year. We ask for this one-time amendment of our 220 grant agreement to allow us to move forward and focus on serving St. Albert seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. You did very well. I hope I hope you're feeling better soon.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll open it up to questions from anyone. Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I share Councillor Jolie's concern for you, John. I hope you're feeling well soon.
Thank you.
You can put more than just water in that bottle. I find that loosens up the vocal cords pretty fast too. Can I ask a couple of questions? I know you referred to the grants that you were able to obtain, and they were you were able to actually use them in relation to some of your staffing concerns. How many staff do you currently have now? Like you said, you cut some staff. How many do you have now?
We are at 7.5 right now. And we had 16 in March of 2020 when we began March. Right.
And what would, like, just, you don't have to tell me what each one of those 7 do, because I imagine one of them is yourself. But what, like, are they into doing some of the cooking like you've identified? Or are they into virtual programming? What are some of their responsibilities?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So we do have people in the kitchen, of course. We have a maintenance person around the cleaning and sanitation needed. We have virtual programming going on through Zoom, whether it's contracted instructors or some of our actual staff members. We're still doing our meal program, so we have that person kind of administering that. The bus is going to be starting again this week, so that's my half person at this point. What else am I missing somebody? Myself.
Oh, you don't have to go through them all. I was
Yeah.
just trying to get an idea of the type
Yeah.
of work, because you said you had to cut back on it. So were you able to take advantage of any of the federal CERB programming or other grants that were available specifically to COVID crisis situations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did. We did get the federal wage subsidy. So for the people that remained on our team.
Okay. And so we're actually looking at the 2020 grant holdback is for 23,962, but there's an additional amount as well, correct? And I might have to look at Anna. I think 35,000 or something in relation to some of the previously allocated funding. Yeah. So sorry, I'm just trying to stop. I don't want you to lose your voice so are we looking at what would that about 58,962, I guess, just doing quick math? Is that the actual total amount you're asking for the one-time forgiveness for? And Anna can jump in if.
Yeah, that would be correct. We would have to look at the final accountability for 2020, but it's forecasted to be about 58 to 60,000.
Okay. And, you know, this crisis is taking us all through 2020, and now it looks like it's impacting us even into 2021. What about the funding for 2021? How are we doing on, like, what do you anticipate similar challenges? I know it all depends on when we can open up again, but are we looking similar? Like,
well, I would hope not, because we're a bare bones staff at this point. So that's what went in the 221 grant.
Right.
And again, I hope we've got this new revenue stream coming in where I hope I can start to build up those other earned revenues. So we're not in any position to have to totally rely on the grant either.
Right. So you, just curious, you said you're going to start up with the bus program, which is fantastic. And that's a half-time person. Any other plans your plan to roll out? What would you start up next? I guess it totally depends on what restrictions. Yeah.
Well, okay. We have a program season that people registered for. We have over probably about 150 people registered to take classes that were supposed to start in January.
Yeah.
But we have to keep holding on. So we're hoping we do have, our restaurant is actually going to open partially today. So we've got that piece. We continue to do senior support services either over the phone or via Zoom. Yeah. So we're just going to add back as we can. The activities, things like that people are missing.
Yep. Did you see a decline in your membership? Like, did some people not renew their membership, or?
A little bit, but not as much as we expected, actually. We actually have people buying, saying, even though, you know, they want to continue to support the organization because they want it to be there. So, more than I expected, actually.
Well, that's great news, Joanna. Red Willow Place is a city-owned facility, and the senior society, you guys lease it back from the city, is that correct? That's just for the people that are potentially watching this later.
Yeah.
All right. No, I was just wanting to confirm that for when people are eventually listening in on this later. That's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Thanks, Joanna. I hope you get well soon.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Jenna, thanks for tracking this out here today. This is an important topic for both of us. So you said, the one thing I'm trying to grapple with, because when I saw this before, I thought this seems like something that we should be doing, but then you said, we're okay if you don't give us the money. So is that accurate, because what I find is a lot of organizations will come and say we're okay, but then that's going to be financially devastating. So can you give us the ramifications if they don't get you if it's $20,000 that was you were expecting or budgeting for last year?
Yeah. Because we swiveled and again tried to bring in revenue in different ways, in the last 3 months of the year, the food sales that we didn't really have before have carried us. So we're going to be okay. And we're not in crisis, but we don't want to get there either. So we're trying to prevent that by just slowly moving forward and being cautious.
Okay, so if you don't, I guess, like, what is the consequences if you don't get the $20,000 or the $23,000?
I don't have my year-end totals yet for my audited books,
Okay.
but we will not be in a deficit position, which was my big worry when I wrote that back in October, November. So we will carry on, and we have, with the 2 new grants I have, plus the 221 city FCSS and operating, we have a balanced budget going forward for 221.
And I'm going to ask you a question right now. So,
maybe I think Anna probably has a presentation later in the agenda.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a perspective on this one.
And Jenna, are you able to stick around for when we go through that?
Yeah, if you can stay, that would help me, just because I'm trying to get some clarity here.
Yeah,
we're talking about potentially changing a policy altogether, so this is not minor, I suppose. No. Okay, we'll wait. I'll wait till after I hear from Anna if I have more questions. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any more hands up. I guess my question's along the lines of Councillor Hughes. I mean, I certainly see that there is willingness to kind of adjust the policy to make sure that the senior center isn't kind of left behind this year. So I guess going back to Councillor Hughes's question, if the senior center is not receiving that $20,000, is it going to slow down the ramp up of programs this year or kind of hurt productivity this year?
And I don't think so. I think we will be okay. Again, when I plan the budget, I try to project the year and the cash flow. And we do need to depend on ourselves also to continue to add revenue where we can if we're going to grow.
Okay, thank you. That's great. I'm not seeing any other hands up. So Tony, are you here to provide support or would you like to address committee?
Actually, I'm here to support Jonna in case she has trouble with her speaking ability, but I certainly will put in my 2 cents worth if I need to.
Okay. Well, and you know what, unless you have something that you'd like to add right now, we can continue on with the agenda. And actually the next thing on the agenda is the outside agency grant program. So if you two would like to stick around, you're welcome to do that. And there might be kind of some more questions if that works for you. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll go next to the agenda. Anna, do you have a presentation for us or?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have a presentation. I think I will go through it just to again summarize the events of the last few months. In the 2020 Outside Agency Granting Program, the St. Albert Seniors Association was allocated $239,617. The staffing and facility operating expenses approved for subsidy were detailed in the grant agreement signed by both the organization and administration in January of 2020. The details within the grant agreement were specific as to the maximum amount of grant dollars allowable for each approved staffing position or facility expense. With the grant agreement signed, the group was provided the initial 90% of approved grant funding, which was $250,655. As part of the grant accountability, the Seniors Association were required to submit an interim accountability report, which we received mid-November 2020. The final 10% of the grant is then normally released. For the Seniors Association, the amount of the 10% holdback is $23,962. Administration review of the interim accountability report identified the Seniors Association applied some of the grant funding in areas not originally approved within the grant agreement. Some of the association positions that were approved for grant funding were laid off earlier in 2020 due to the pandemic. Therefore, the salaries were not expended as per the funding agreement. From the financial review, it is forecasted that by the end of 2020, the seniors will have utilized approximately $60,000 of their total approved grant for additional expenses beyond what was initially approved. Of this $60,000, $23,962 has not yet been provided to the association, as it is the 10% holdback. If the Seniors Association are required to repay the grant funding already provided, which they use to assist with unapproved expenses, the amount of repayment would be approximately $35,000. At the time of the report, the Seniors Association had requested they still receive the 10% holdback, as the funding was needed to assist the organization with their finances. And they were also requesting we do not require the repayment of $35,000. And again, as Jonna mentioned, this was prior to finding out in late December that they had been approved for the $67,000. Administration is bound by Council Policy CCS 22. In order to waive the requirement for the Seniors Association to repay the grant funding used for unapproved expenses and to provide the 10% holdback, administration requires an approved motion from council. In the event that no motion moves forward from CLSC or council, then the Seniors Association will be asked to repay the portion of the grant used for unapproved expenses, which is approximately $35,000, and they will not receive the 2020 holdback, which is just under $24,000. In total, this would be a decrease in revenue for the Seniors Association of about $59,000-$60,000 from their approved 2020 grant. The estimated grant amount that has been used for unapproved expenses would need to be confirmed once the Seniors Association is able to provide their final year-end report for 2020. And hopefully that again just summarizes what Jonna again has already provided to council. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So before we go to questions, can I just get everyone to mute? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you. So does anyone, Councillor Hughes, did you want to ask your question of Anna? Or you want to wait on that?
I forgot what it is now. My brain only works in 10 seconds. So yeah, no, let me just, I can't remember what it is, honestly.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Mackay, did you have something?
Yeah, and I apologize. I thought I had muted my button, so it was probably me giving you the feedback. I apologize for that. I just want to confirm again in relation, so there's no confusion. And Anna, I believe you addressed this twice now, but for the $35,000, that's existing from where? From a previous grant? Can you explain that for me again?
The amount which has been already given out, which was applied above, and it wasn't applied to expenses that weren't approved, it was just above the maximum subsidy. That has already been given out, and that was from 2020 grant dollars. The holdback is also from 2020. So it's money that was already budgeted for, approved, and it's just basically in a holding account right now.
Okay, so the total amount of 58,000 is in a holding account, or did we already do the 35 is already with the seniors?
Yeah.
And really the holdback is just policy, the 10%, the 23. So
exactly.
So in the two recommendations that administration has provided, you're saying we could either do one or both together,
correct.
Right? We could waive one, or we could do the other. Yeah. Okay, and just like Councillor Hughes, I had another question, but poof, it left me. So jump in there, Sheena.
Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Okay, so Anna, different question. The original one's just gone like butterfly. But anyway, other organizations, have we had any other organizations where you've also had to hold back the money for 2020 because it was allocated or used differently?
No, we haven't. And we've had a few organizations that maybe change somewhat what they were doing, but it really was within the scope and the spirit of the grant. Maybe someone was providing live classes and now they're doing it online. So really the changes were very minimal. I think with the seniors, because their budget is large and they apply for so much of their staffing because they have a number of staff. Other organizations are maybe only requesting funding for their executive director, or maybe, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 positions, where the seniors are really in a different, it's almost a different game that they're in.
Okay. So when I look at the recommendation for the motion, it's basically to take it as information. And the ramifications of that would be that we are still requesting the 23, we're still holding back the 23,000. But we're not changing the policy, but we're also not asking for repayment of the other 35. That's what I'm interpreting from saying take this information. Is that correct, Anna?
That's correct, and it's because council would have to approve any change. Right now, because I have this policy, I have to ask back the amount that was overspent and not give the 23,000 back. So if council would like to do anything but that, that's why the suggested motions were provided for you.
Okay. So I'm gonna Jenna, can I flip back and forth, Madam Chair? Okay. So Jenna, I guess what I'm wondering is, because you knew that you were going to be break even, you could have not asked to have this come forward at all, because you're taking a giant risk here in that you're admitting that you can get by without the money, which really does not put a lot of pressure on us to give you the extra funds when we're in a financial situation ourselves. And you're risking losing another $35,000 as one of the alternate options. I'm trying to figure out why you didn't just withdraw this request. Oh, you're on mute.
Well, number one, at the beginning, I thought that it was actually, again, in October when I was preparing that, I thought we absolutely needed it. But I also certainly believe in doing the right thing. So to say that, come to you and say that we need it when we can get by without it would not be proper. So I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
But I also am hoping that we are not penalized. So we start, you know, the year backwards by owing money versus trying to move forward and rebuild.
Because the 35,000, I'm assuming that if we did the 23 plus 35, what are we looking at, 58 grand? Like that would be a significant hit. I'm assuming that you would be in a negative position if we were to take option number 1 and force you to repay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. But if we just leave it as is and take it as information, you guys will be okay because of the recent innovations that you guys have done. Is that correct?
Well, the plan is, yes, to try to just go forward with what my budget is balanced, as long as I don't have to pay back money.
Okay.
May I interject? And Anna, please correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that do nothing means that we claw back the 35,000.
No.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
if you do nothing, then that means I have to enact what the policy requires of me, which is request the 35,000 back and do not provide the 10% holdback if you do nothing.
So thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So what I get the impression here is that we want a motion to
Number 1,
request that council forgive the 35,000, and then maybe or maybe not give the extra, the 20,000.
So
that everyone's understanding.
Are we looking at alternative option number 1 to just address the 23,000, Anna?
Actually, I'm asking you to look at both, to whether to waive the 35 so that they don't have to repay it, and to look at whether or not you'd like me to release that 23,000. So there's the 2. So, and again, it's just provided for information because I have to follow the policy. Council would have to make the motions.
I'm just trying to figure out which motion we're putting forward so we don't do something we didn't mean to do. So the 35,000, forgiving the 35,000, we'll say, would that be alternative motion number 1 then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to do both, that would be motion number 2.
Okay.
And if you wanted to do nothing, then it's just received as information.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you, Natalie, because I thought when I said before that it was a different answer than this, so I'm glad that you tried.
I was getting alarm bells. It's like, please don't move that motion.
Well, yeah, especially that's the consequences.
Councillor Mackay, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just in relation to if we move forward with motion, alternative motion 1, the 23,962, we're holding that back now. I mean, that would have been allocated in a normal year. I mean, it's right now, it doesn't go back in, it would just go back into what fund? It wouldn't go back into the outside agency fund for next year's use, so we wouldn't top it up, right? It would just go back into a general stabilization fund or something like that?
Yes, it would just go to the bottom line for 2021.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, so we wouldn't be adding 23,962 to next year's outside agency grant funding. Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that, because I mean, in all intents and purposes, and I'm not in debate, but in all intents and purposes, the 23,962 would have gone out in every year up till now. I guess that's a rhetorical question, probably, right? I mean,
yes, yeah.
In the past, I mean, have we ever had another agency that's been faced with a situation like this?
No, that's correct. We have not had anybody else.
And are we, and I think you said this in a previous question, but are any of our outside agencies currently facing a similar situation like this, or would take advantage of a situation like this if we approved motion number 1, alternative motion number 1, or did nothing?
No other group is in this situation right now, and we've actually changed the accountability, the administrative accountability process. So I have an additional check-in with the organizations just to, again, ensure everyone is on track, and we can maybe address it much sooner than in November or December.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, part of my question would be, obviously, if you know, you do it for one outside agency, then you have to do it for other agencies as well. And I just was wondering if any of our other agencies are in a difficult situation or a similar situation. And you're saying no.
No, all other agencies received their 10% holdback in December.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, thanks. I'm done. Thanks.
Councillor Hughes, you want to clarify something?
Just one thing is just, I'm looking at the 23,962 that, you know, is sitting there on the table, and I guess I'm asking the committee as well, whether we think it should actually go back into the bottom line, or it should go back to potentially the following year for the outside organizations, so that, you know, we underfunded quite a few organizations last year, or for 2021, and there is the potential that this could then go into, if the policy was changed, to allow, in the event, which would be very rare, that there would be actual extra money in this category since the pot's used up plus some, that it would go back into the pot to potentially help other organizations. Because, for example, had we not known that, if we could have looked back in 2020 and known in January that the seniors organization could have got by with 23,000 left, which by the way, I'm not penalizing you for this. This is really innovative of what you've done, and I really appreciate the extra effort you guys have done to make these books balance. But in the event that this had been known, then we could have said, okay, then the other organizations could have had that additional funding. So the fact there isn't a rollover in this category, just because we typically spend it all up, this might be something when the policy comes forward that we want to have a rollover option, knowing that it will rarely, if ever, be exercised, but that rollover option is available to help in the event that in the event we have extraordinary circumstances again. I guess it's just something that I'm not sure how to put that into policy, but just for discussion purposes for this committee, if this is something that we should be entertaining, or if we should say no, it's just going back into the surplus for the year, if there is any surplus or deficit for the year. I don't know what anyone thinks.
I don't know. Did you want to comment from Diane about that, or just?
This is kind of like a city thing, I guess, is just like as a conversation. I mean, I guess I'm looking at Mayor Herron and Councillor Mackay, as well as you, Mayor or Chair. Do we think that that's something that should be considered in the policy, or do we think that that's just something that we should say, no, it's just going out of the bottom line? because it's going to happen. Hopefully, it's going to happen so rarely.
Yeah. So I guess I'm seeing that we're generally in agreement that we want to forgive the 35,000. So it's only the 23 that we're talking about. Mayor Herron,
Yes.
do you have any thoughts about where that 23 goes from last year's budget?
First of all, I think the conversation is going really well. I'm in agreement with forgiving the 35. I think we need to be a little bit flexible in our processes and procedures. I do believe it takes council motion to do that. I don't know if we need to change the policy quite yet. But for the 23, honestly, today isn't really about deciding what we would do with that 23. I'm sure we could have that conversation with all our not-for-profits in the community after the fact, but this is actually a remarkable conversation. I'm really kind of pleased with the way it's going. So do we need two separate motions then? One for the 35 and one for the 23? Is that how we want to structure this?
No, I think all we need is the alternative one.
Okay.
If we want to keep the 23.
Right. And that's what's up for debate right now, be an appropriate alternate one.
Is that what you're seeing, Councillor Mackay?
Well, yes and no. I think that I think we're talking about two different things, if I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Hughes, but I mean, specifically, maybe if we change policy, I don't know if we do a one-off, but then again, if we change policy and allow us to have carryovers, I don't see a real danger with that, other than the fact that this is a very unique situation. But it does give us flexibility. But it also, if we're looking at doing something like that, amending our policy, I would probably not want to do it on the fly, like just doing it today. I would probably want to wait and get a little bit more background from administration as to what the implications and ramifications of that. And so that could take a second separate motion at a totally different time. Right now, the 23,962 would just go to the city's bottom line. If that's the direction we want to go. So, either I think we're fine. This is my opinion only. I think that we should just either be looking at the two alternative motions that we have in front of us for today. That's all. Yeah, and I was just going to say, Mayor Herron, I don't know, maybe if you shut your video off, as much as that'll hurt me and to not see your face, but you'll probably be able to deal with it better. So that's my feelings on that question. So, but I'm also prepared. I mean, I'm also prepared to move forward on one of the motions.
Okay. Councillor Hanson, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to get in here before you accepted a motion or whatever motion you decide. My personal thoughts on this is that we should be forgiving both. And I'm thinking about the future, and I'm thinking about recovering, and I'm thinking about resiliency, and I'm thinking about what the Seniors Society can do for us as we start to recover from COVID. And I think that they could have a very handy, they're focused on a group of people who have been very impacted by COVID. And I think that in terms of as our recovery task force starts to build again, that they could be a very strong ally in all of this. And so if I were on committee, I would be waiving both. And I'm not on committee, but I guess I feel pretty strongly about this, that the money was dedicated to them. We are going to come to recovery at some point in time. That money's never going to get wasted at the Seniors Society. So I would be saying, let's let things go the way they are and ask for their help when we need it most, and that will be in recovery.
Thank you. And I guess, Jenna, that's what I was trying to get at earlier was, is this money going to help us recover faster? And I don't know if you want to add to that. It's just hard proving funding when you say you don't need it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, absolutely. I mean, more money will allow me to, staff differently, add more, do things like that. But I'm also trying to be very fiscally responsible. So it's kind of a mix there. But if
Yeah.
certainly if I had it, I can use it and I can put it to good use. Absolutely.
Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Councillor Hanson, for speaking up. But so Jenna, would we be looking at doing more staffing or more programs sooner if you had this cash? Like, I'm just kind of like, do you have any idea what you would do with the money if you had it?
Yes, probably. I would probably bring back another staff person in order to do the activities and things are one of the things we're really worried about. Because we've got classes, but we don't have some of the floor curling and the bridge and the things that people just come and do the socialization, because we actually need someone to supervise those activities to ensure they're safe. So there's been problems in trying to bring those back since September. So if I could hire someone to help to rebuild that piece, it would be wonderful.
Okay, so if we used it, you'd actually be using the money to handle the restrictions and the to actually allow the programs to happen in spite of the conditions.
Bit faster, yeah, basically, because we just have, there's more cleaning, there's more supervision that has to be done with COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, are you thinking you have a motion that you'd like to bring forward, Councillor Hughes, or we've still got, I think, a question from Councillor Mackay, but if you want to think on that and we can get.
No, I was just prepared. Unless there was any more questions, Chair Jolly, I was just going to move motion, but if you want more questions, I'll wait.
Which motion were you looking at, Ken? Number two?
Number two.
Okay.
Because what I was thinking of is that we could do the motion number 2, but not amend the operating policy.
I think we have to for one time. I think for administration's purposes, I think that we need to do that.
No,
I'm looking
we can
at
do whatever we want. Like, the thing is that council doesn't have to follow its own policies. Everybody else has to follow our policies. We don't have to follow anything. So we could just say we're allowing it to stop and at the word "and" stop and not make this a standard. Is what we can do, unless you're like looking at it before, but that's what I understand.
We get Mr. LaFleur to explain kind of the wording of that second motion to us and why it's in there.
My apologies. We're not, in either of the motions, we're not contemplating amending a policy, okay? This is not what's being brought forward at all. What we're saying is that if we're going to, on a one-time basis, end around the policy, you can do it for either for the holdback, or you can do it for the 35,000 that was, for lack of a better word, misallocated. And in either case, though, we need to amend the agreement, right? Okay. The agreement is what I'm asking to amend, and that's easy. I mean, I'm your lawyer. I'm just waiting for your decision. I will prepare an amendment to the agreement according to whatever council wants to do. Okay, well then I feel better now. You go ahead. I'll bring forward the thing since I have the mic, if you want, since I know what you want to do. If you're good with that, just so we can make this meeting move forward. Yeah. Okay. So I will bring forward that the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council that the obligation of the Sonoma Senior Association to repay the 2020 outside agency grants funds previously received and used for the unapproved expenses be waived, and the administration be directed to provide the 2020 outside agency grant holdback in the amount of $23,962 to the St. Albert Senior Association, and that the amendment of the operating grant agreement be executed to allow these things to occur, notwithstanding Council Policy C-CS-22.
Okay, I'll accept that motion. Any comments to open?
I think we've really discussed this in quite a bit of detail, try to figure out what the best thing to do is. And I mean, I know initially we were all going for the number 1, and I think Councillor Hanson, your presence today helped us actually move the needle a bit further. Because what I'm thinking of is that if we can use these funds to help things become better for people sooner, especially seniors that have been so isolated and so impacted by this in 2021, to use that money so that they can actually have more activities and be able to still meet all their obligations that they have to as per the provincial government, and also make sure people feel comfortable coming back to the organization. And there will be additional funds required to do that. Then we're really investing this money into 2021 for people so that they can use the facilities and try to regain some normalcy in their lives. So this is an extraordinary situation, I think, that we actually, but also I was looking at it, but the fact that I don't want to penalize the seniors organization for taking the initiatives they did in the third quarter to make sure that their books balanced. And if we said we're not giving the 23,000 because you did that, then you're basically saying that because you took innovation, we're not going to allow you the money that we previously allocated to you. And we're basically penalizing organizations for getting out there and trying to figure out how to address the problems, the financial problems they've had, and also try to meet the needs of the community. So by doing this, we are not penalizing them for doing the initiatives that we have done, and we're also allowing them to potentially offer more activities and services sooner to 2021, and meeting the obligations of the provincial government and also the expectations of the public as they move forward into this. So that's, and if we can get we can get people back to work, that's going to be the goal here. The unemployment rate is ridiculously high. So I know that Councillor Watkins, whenever he talks about, he's like, can we get more people back to work? And that's one of the things we could be able to do, to the benefit of potentially hundreds, if not thousands of people who will be able to use those services. So I got talked into number 2 as the alternative, and I'm leaving it to the committee to decide. That's it.
Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Yeah, all great comments, and certainly we're going to be part of my comments. And actually, I was always going to move forward. I recognize the support, and I appreciate the extra words that Councillor Hanson brought in. I always appreciate her insight. But I think that we're dealing with one of the highest needs parts of our community right now. I mean, so many of our seniors are socially isolated already, and COVID just really impacted them in a greater fashion. So, I mean, if we can use, I mean, like I mentioned in my comments, the 23,962 would have gone out anyways, and it would have been part of their regular grant funding. These are very unique times, and I think that, and I believe strongly that, you know, we will use this, or that the seniors association, pardon me, not society, seniors association will use this in such a way, whether it's bringing back staff, or whether it's enhancing other programs online, or whether it's even going towards enhancing their bus services, which are so critical for our community. Anyways, all good comments. I don't need to tack on anymore. Thank you. I'll be supporting number 2. I always was going to move that one anyways.
I have no comments. This was an easy one for me. So Councillor Houston, do you want to say any words to close?
I just want to thank the seniors organization for taking such a fiscally minded approach and not actually even asking us for more money, and recognizing that in 2021 we approved less than their ask. So all of this combined hopefully will allow them to continue to provide as many services as possible. Yeah, I don't think we should be penalizing for taking an innovative approach to making things happen. That's it. Thanks.
All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. And process-wise, I'm not sure. So I forgot to do the adoption of the minutes. Are we okay just to jump in and do that at this point? Any issues with that? I'm not seeing. Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the January 18 minutes? So you can get there quick. Okay, go ahead, Mayor Hare.
Sorry, I had a hard time unmuting. Where is it?
I have a hard time not having paper agenda.
No, it's good for us.
It is.
All right, a recommendation of the Community Living Standing Committee minutes of January 18th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so next on the agenda, I'm going to double check. That was a great discussion, everyone. And thank you, Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Tony and Jonah, for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And everything you're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So next up is 6.2, the letter of support request, North Saskatchewan River Heritage designation. And I see that's being presented by Christian. There he is. You were famous on like LinkedIn and YouTube. Congratulations. It's exciting projects for your whole team, Kate, and you did great, Christian.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So I have a brief presentation today. I will share my screen. So good morning, committee. Today, administration is seeking a council resolution to formally support Smoky Lake County in their application to designate the North Saskatchewan River as a heritage river under the Canadian Heritage River System project. The Canadian Heritage River System project is a partnership between the provincial and federal governments, and there are 40 heritage rivers across Canada that are recognized nationally as heritage rivers. Designation under the CHRS does not impose new restrictions on a municipality, nor does it affect a municipality's right to exercise its traditional responsibilities. Similarly, the right of a property ownership and other stakeholders do not change, nor are any municipalities that lie along a river corridor required to implement additional development considerations. The area seeking designation is the entirety of the North Saskatchewan River outside a 49-kilometer stretch that's within federal lands of the Banff National Park that was designated back in 1989. To date, Smoky Lake County has obtained more than 47 letters of support from communities and community groups along the North Saskatchewan, and Alberta Minister of Environment, Jason Nixon, has committed to supporting the nomination. The city of St. Albert is situated within the North Saskatchewan watershed and is an active contributor to the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. Administration is recommending that City Council provide a letter of support to Smoky Lake County for this project. Being a part of the Canadian Heritage River System means an opportunity to foster river management that unites communities, celebrate and support the cultural connections of Indigenous peoples with rivers, tell stories of our nation, building sense of identity and pride, stimulate adventure travel and sustainable tourism, help Canadians connect with history, nature, or natural and cultural traditions, promote stewardship and citizen engagement, engage new Canadians and youth in river education, conservation, and recreation, and encourage the protection of water resources to improve public health, well-being, and quality of life. And that's my short presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, Councillor Hanson, I know Mayor Herron and I have heard kind of your spiel in terms of perspective from the Sturgeon Watershed Alliance. Are you able to comment on this at all from kind of our partnership with them?
Bet, thanks for the opportunity. The North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, of which I am part of that board, is in full support of the river heritage designation. There was a time, though, that we were asked to be part of the applying of this, and that's where the NSWA said, well, we can't do that. We don't have the resources to do that, because the applicant that makes that applies for this designation has to provide a management plan and some other administrative that we just don't have the resources to do as a not-for-profit. Like in Banff, it is the federal government, because Banff is a federal provincial park that provides all of that administration towards that heritage designation in that area. So it is not that the NSWA does not support this. We do, and we will be providing a letter of support. We just won't be part of the application. I think it's great, Christian, that you're bringing this forward, and good on Smoky Lake, because this has been a little bit ongoing. And it seems like the tides have turned and people are on board, and it really isn't going to impact our own resources. It's just, it just acknowledges the importance of this river watershed. And so I'm really glad that this is coming up to date, and NSWA certainly does support it.
Thank you. So it looks like we've got a few questions. So Councillor Mackay and then Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just information. When I read this late last week, I went on to their website because I wanted to find out a little bit more about the organization, just to get some background, just because I know the backgrounder identified that there's really no impacts to administration as being identified by Councillor Hans. But so it's a partnership between provincial and federal governments, but it's not a government agency. So can you give me a little bit of the structure, like who is Canadian Heritage River System?
Thanks, Councillor Mackay. From my understanding, they're a nonprofit association that's been granted the administrative ability to designate Canadian heritage rivers. So I think not too dissimilar to what we've seen in the North Saskatchewan watershed, and similarly to the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. They're a body of administrative and elected officials in a nonprofit framework that is given authority to provide this type of designation.
So, but so we provide this, and I support this, but I'm just trying to figure out what it means. Does it, by being designated as a heritage river, the entire length now, because I was curious to know why they only did the 49 kilometers in Banff National Park, but by doing this all the way through, it really is just what? I mean, where there's no obligation as part of the being a member or supporting this, it just seems, and excuse my language, it just seems a little fuzzy is all. Like, where's the meat behind the organization to protect our watershed and our heritage river sites? Or is it just more of a, again, this is like more of a feel-good statement?
From my understanding, Smoky Lake County initiated this project largely as an economic development driver for their community. They're looking for support just to anybody that impacts and touches the watershed, really as a due diligence. So in supporting this, we're helping out a neighboring municipality, and they are really taking the onus on themselves to produce these management plans, update them in accordance with the Canadian Heritage River System. And for us, it's a nice designation to be a subset and a sub watershed of the North Saskatchewan, to be a part of this really Canadian story of Canadian rivers.
So does the management plan that Smoky Lake County is doing, is it go all the way to the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan, all the way through till it to its conclusion, river's conclusion, or is it just deals with a portion of the river similar to the Banff National Park?
From my understanding, it's for the entire portion that's within Alberta. I understand that Smoky Lake County has approached a watershed group within Saskatchewan to designate their portion as well. So I think for them, for Smoky Lake County, their responsibility would lie just in the Alberta section that's under their sort of management plan. So outside of the Banff National Park section, but concludes at the Alberta border.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. I was just trying to get, I just want to see what it means. I mean, we've already, I just don't know what it means. I mean, it feels good, and it'd be nice to have North Saskatchewan designated a heritage river, but why, like, I'm just saying, what does it really mean other than just a name?
Councillor Hanson, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think, Councillor Mackay, when you get the support of the province to support the application, that is an important part of this. The application is the hardest part of this, and Smoky Lake is bringing it forward. Just as an aside, they are, while we're not, NSWA is not part of the application, we're providing a lot of data from work that's been done in the shed. So I think they're going to get assistance from the province with the management plan by having their support. But it is a little bit of a process, and I think that's why, as far as Smoky Lake is concerned, it would be best to have the support of all those that touch the watershed to be in support of this with the province. And now they are going into Saskatchewan as well. So it's kind of, to me, it feels like it's kind of an all or nothing deal. If you don't get supportive people on the shed, well, then there's no point in trying to designate it heritage river, because the river doesn't stop. It keeps going. So it's difficult to just have a portion of it designated. So I think Smoky Lake is trying to create a more holistic approach around the whole watershed.
And if I can add to that, there's 4 priorities when it comes to the heritage designation, whether it's the reconciliation piece with our Indigenous communities, strengthening the network, so making sure that we are protecting the overall watershed, providing that conservation and management plan as it relates to the watershed, and then engaging and becoming stewards of that. And when you are a member of that Canadian Heritage water systems, you have access to, there's designated 2 technical representation from each of the province, from the for our case, the GOA. So each province provides 2 government technical reps that provide support to the overall system. So you do have access to kind of a stronger network of technical support from across the country.
I appreciate the additional information, Chair. I was just, I mean, it looks fantastic, but I mean, sometimes if we don't have, I mean, by signing in a letter, but we don't really have much to, I mean, it doesn't really give us any meat or any, why, you know, but I don't see any danger in doing this, but thanks. I appreciate the additional information from both administration and once again, Councillor Hanson.
Right, Councillor Hughes, did you have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Okay, so you said, I'm going to look to Mr. Benson. So you said that it was an economic driver for Smoky Lake. How? Like, do you have any idea of how they're expecting to get economic benefit from doing this?
Councillor Hughes, sure, and I'll preface this saying I don't want to speak for Smoky Lake County. From my understanding is it is an opportunity for them to promote tourism within Smoky Lake County. And it's an opportunity for them to grow an adventure tourism type of market. So in my emails back and forth with the representative of Smoky Lake County, that was one of the primary drivers. And of course, stewardship and environmentalism is high up on their list. But this is also another benefit they highlighted with their council, is it could be an opportunity for them to grow a tourism base.
Okay. So I'm not sure if it's you or Kate, but is there any downsides, any potential downsides? So what I'm looking at is like, could it suddenly be that the water rates skyrocket because we have the designation and we have a conservation plan? Or is EPCOR suddenly, like, because Smoky Lake is making the management plan, could they suddenly put things that are the other the conditions or additional costs to everybody else that's using the river as well? Could those potentially be as a result of this, or no?
I appreciate the question, Councillor Hughes, because it's good to look at all the aspects of it. But no, in terms of how we have water license that is protected by the province that is separate from this piece. So those pieces are protected and are a separate entity. And even stronger, the Regional Water Customers Group kind of holds on to their own water license as that additional support. So no, it doesn't have the ability to affect our water rate or kind of our stormwater, the way we manage our stormwater. We're sort of, with Calgary, one of the leaders in terms of stormwater management of how we treat that. So we're in a good place. Okay.
So is there any potential downside, like not, or even the slightest likelihood there could be a potential downside? Is there any potential downside to saying yes to this?
I don't believe so. Christian, can you add anything?
No, certainly by providing a letter of support, St. Alberta is not obligated to do any type of management plan or additional monitoring. If anything, their responsibility would be on Smoky Lake County as the applicant. Providing a letter of recommendation, we'd be one of 47 other bodies who've provided this recommendation, and absolutely zero outcome and responsibility as a result of putting a letter of recommendation forward.
Okay. I mean, I see this as, I'm not really sure how much teeth it's going to have in the end, but I also don't see it as a downside either. So that's kind of what I would say on that. Sure. Sounds good. That's all I've got. Thanks.
So Councillor Mackay has volunteered to move this. Unless we have any other questions, we can go ahead with that.
Yep, I will definitely move it. I was just asking one more question. Are there any other heritage designated rivers in Alberta? I was trying to find it. Can you go ahead? Sorry, Christian.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I know the Athabasca is a heritage river, and I believe Kicking Horse is the other one in Alberta. So this portion of North Saskatchewan would be technically the third, but of course there's a small portion that's already designated. Yeah. All right, thanks. I appreciate that. That gives good background, because I was hoping that Athabasca was included in that, because obviously it is a major river as well. I can move it if you're ready, Chair. That Community Living Standing Committee recommend that Council provide a letter of support to Smoky Lake County in their application for the designation of the North Saskatchewan River as a heritage river under the Canadian Heritage Rivers System project. I don't really have any opening comments. We
I'm assuming you're accepting that, only in
I
the
will-
sense that we talked about it in our questions. There's no downside. There's only an upside in this because I guess I'm fibbing to you. I do have some comments, obviously. You know, we're really starting to enjoy the Sturgeon River, and we're enjoying it more in a COVID world. And we're certainly getting feedback about the importance of our river and our watershed. So I don't see any downside to supporting this. And actually, I applaud Smoky Lake for their initiative. And if there's any economic benefit for the city of St. Albert, I would hope that we look at that opportunity it provides as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up. We're good. All right, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All right, that is carried. That was an easy one. Thank you, Christian, for the presentation, and Kate for the information. That was really interesting. Councillor Hanson as well. I'm glad we have you on that committee. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. Unless Brittany's going to yell at me for missing something. I'm not hearing that at all. So it's great seeing everyone. Meeting's adjourned. We'll see you guys next week.